One. Welcome back, everybody, to Two Guys and a Stack of Comics. My name is Reed. Along with me, as always, is Mike. Mike, we
Hey,
recently this
everybody.
week got our update on DC All In. We heard a lot about Batman. We heard a lot about Darkseid. We heard a lot about Superman. We heard a lot about Wonder Woman, some of the things they're doing. But one character we didn't hear a lot about was the Flash. Barry Allen, Wally West, Jake Garrick, whoever your favorite is. I think that's something we'll talk about in this video as well. But what we thought we'd do just to have some fun and kind of look at this, there's a few characters that you and I, as fans of the big two, have kind of seen go by the wayside a little bit. So we thought, just kind of as a thought experiment kind of thing, just throw some pitches out there of what we'd like to see done with the character. I think it'd also be fun in the comments below for you guys. What would you do with some of these characters? Where do you feel like they're at? So the Flash, Mike, it's an interesting time for you, and I'll tee this up for you and then just let you go. The Flash, the last decade, technically has had one of his best decades. And then
Yeah.
you talk about a TV show that ran for a long time, although that massively dipped in quality as it went. There was a big budget movie, and he was in Justice League, although I don't think any Flash fan was super thrilled with how that went. And we have gotten a really good Josh Williamson run and a very solid Jeremy Adams run.
Yeah.
But where we currently find the Flash, he's coming off a major box office bomb of a movie. TV show is off the air. He hasn't been announced as anything as part of the new DC universe. And the current comic book is not exactly lighting the world on fire. I know you and I are still picking it up, but it's not. There's a reason it hasn't appeared on our best comics of the month much since the reboot that
Yeah.
we're there. So with the Flash, we also talked about this last month. We talked about how there's way too many characters with the same mantle. We've got what Max Mercury, Bart, Barry, Wally, Jay, Avery, Wallace, all of this. So
The
Mike,
Flash
just
family.
for you, with a reboot coming for DC, as a Flash fan, I know specifically a Barry Allen fan, what would you like to see DC Comics do with the Flash? If I put you in charge, gave you like the Mike, make your pitch to DC, what would you do with the
Well,
overall Flash?
it's funny you should ask because I was just thinking about this, the other day, and the Flash and Barry Allen in particular is such a classic character, and we talked about this in one of our videos, like what's going wrong with comics. You know, the Superman family in the 1950s built this model for you can have a family of characters that share the same powers, and it kind of exploded. It kind of went sour with Batman, but they tried it with Batman in the late 50s, early
Yep.
60s. There was Batmite, there was Bat everything, Bat Dog,
Batgirl, Ace the Bat Hound. Yeah, I
Ace the
mean,
Bat Hound. That was
yeah,
it. Yeah, You notice Flash doesn't have like a red-haired greyhound or something as a mascot.
not yet.
But
Yeah.
anyways, I would love to see it go back to basics. And one of the cool things about the character of Barry Allen is his detective skills. And there was a comic with him and Batman maybe about 5, 6 years ago, where they were on the trail. Wasn't it the Watchmen? They
Yeah, it
were,
was that Watchmen
yeah,
tie-in where they were looking at what
yeah.
happened with the button from the
Now
comedian.
Now
Yep.
that storyline went way weird, but the first few issues, it was Barry Allen playing detective with Batman, and I really dug that. And I was just thinking the other day, would it be cool if they could co-star Brave and the Bold, or Barry Allen could show up in Detective Comics, or to help save DC's valued one of their premier characters from all the way back in 1940. What if Batman guest starred and they started up a storyline where they both worked as detectives slash superheroes to solve some big crime, or something to that effect? I think those two personalities and those two job skill sets that they both have worked very well together, and they were just teased out a little bit in that Watchmen,
Tie in the
story.
button. I think it was called the
Yeah.
button. Yeah,
Yes, the
where they had
button.
that.
exactly. And so I would boil it all down. I mean, the Flash family of characters has gotten tiresome, for me
Too many. It's
as a
too
Flash
many.
fan. I remember when Impulse came out in the 90s, it was kind of cool because, Wally West was all grown up, and Wally West filled that role, for 40 years. Eventually he had to grow up. But I just think it would be cool to have an all Barry storyline, maybe link it with Batman, tie in his police scientist skills, maybe call on Batman, have him guest star, and still have the Flash family of friends, maybe as a backup story or something. Although comics really don't do backup stories like they used to in the old days.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's become some books have they make you pay a dollar extra, like Detective Comics, Action Comics. I think even Green Lantern lately has had where it's 4.99 an issue and you get an 8 page kind of backup comic that I don't know. I don't know how many people are really reading the backup comics because a lot of them seem like throwaways.
Yeah,
To be honest, yeah, I think looking at it, I agree. I think leaning into the detective side would be interesting with the Flash, and I think the thing is Barry, because of his ability to transverse different dimensions, he could explore so many different things. You could kind of put him where he's using those detective solving skills in mysteries that wouldn't be Batman, right? You could have the Flash solving a multiversal murder with his ability. And I think that's something they absolutely need to lean into. And that I think what's happened is Wally and Barry, while different, have kind of become too similar. In that, in all honesty, when I see the Flash show up in a comic book, unless someone calls him by his name anymore, they almost write them too similarly, right?
yeah.
If you just did a Justice League comic book right now and you didn't know the current roster and you picked it up and you saw that costume, I don't know if we're talking Barry or if we're talking Wally at this point. And so I think the big thing they've got to do is, I'll even say, for Marvel and all these other characters that have too many repetitive characters, at the very least, like when Miles and Peter show up on panel based on their costumes, that's not the same character.
Right.
Right. With Wally and Barry, you can see the cover of a Flash comic book right now, and I have no idea who the lead character is unless you kind of read all the way through. For me, I think, yeah, I would absolutely lean into the detective part. I think if you want to keep Wally as the main Flash in the Flash book, Detective Comics every month has an 8 page backup story. You can't tell me that that book wouldn't be improved if the 8 page backup story was a Barry Allen mystery that took place, even if you teamed Barry with Batman or something like that. But that's the beauty of Detective Comics is, well, yes, it's a Batman story. If you had a detective storyline with the Flash, that is absolutely in line with what that comic does.
I just
I
think
think
that's an unexplored territory. I mean, that they always dance around it, but it would really be cool. I always hoped that the TV show would be more like CSI with superpowers. And I just thought it was right for that. And it looked like in the first episode it was going to
Yeah,
go
we
down
got
that
teased
road.
with that initially in
Yeah,
episode
yeah,
one, and then they
yeah.
kind of massively went away from it. I think the
So
other part they've got to do with the Flash, I think, like you said, there is too many characters at this point. I think there needs to be some sort of event where the Speed Force gets trained out of a few of these extra characters.
right,
If you want to keep, Bart or Wallace or Avery, you can keep one of the three. I don't really
yeah,
care which of those three that you keep, but keep one of those three. We don't need three junior Flash characters.
right.
Wally's kids all have powers that vaguely, are kind of there. To me, if I was overall in charge of the Flash line, I would have, in all honesty, I like Wally West. I would have Wally West show up in the Titans book as the Flash in that Titans book, and the Flash
Traditionally,
book
that's
should
his
be
book.
Barry Allen's. I think the other unexplored thing, I think you could make the Flash a $5 book with a 20 page Flash story of Barry Allen. I would have the backup be a World War II centered Jay Garrick story. I think that would be I think you could get every month get an artist to come in and do a black and white story of Jay Garrick in World War II. I think that is something fans would eat up. I think having a World
I
War
like
II
the way you
centered
think.
Flash
Yeah,
comic, having him fight the Nazis, going through World War II, Axis powers, maybe show some of those older JSA characters. I think that'd be a great way to tie it in. And I think it would really stand out in this kind of medium that we have now, because we don't have a lot of past set comic books with some of these
right.
great characters. I would love to see that. I think with those three characters, I'd say you could depower all the younger ones, but I know they won't do that. But I think they really need to pick between Bart, Wallace, and that Avery character. Who is your younger Flash character? We don't need three or six. Just give us one. Let that be the younger Flash, and then and kind of stick with those older folks.
Well, and I think that, as the 90s turned into the 2000s and the 2000s turned into 2010 and 2015, I really think the comic book medium was really trying to capture the zeitgeist of the newer generation. And I think a lot of these characters were kind of created to see if anything would stick. And Wally West took pretty good, but
Mhm.
I don't know. I really think that the more traditional and standard story is more entertaining. And I love the idea of a Jay Garrick backup story. That little mini series that they did this year was so great. And it did have a little travel back in time to the 40s. I would hope that other readers would enjoy that too, like I certainly would. I love a good Golden Age Flash story written in the modern era because the modern writers just they go to town on it. They do so much with it, and so I really think that would be cool. And I like what you said, the Teen Titans. I mean, that's Wally's traditional book. I don't know what you would do with these other characters. I really don't know how much, being a Flash fan, I don't know how much the newer audience of Flash fans is invested in them. But and would they be enough to support a second book? I don't know. But I really think you got to go back to Flash basics, and you go back to Barry and hopefully Jay, if the market's there for a great World War II story. I would love the heck out of it.
Well, I think the thing is what I absolutely refuse to believe with the comic book landscape right now with DC, with as many comic books as are out there. I refuse to believe that Poison Ivy can maintain an ongoing comic book and that Power Girl can maintain an ongoing comic book, but Aquaman and Barry Allen can. I just refuse to believe that. I don't think that can actually be true. I think this is DC, in my opinion, wasting characters and having them on the shelf. When I look at the current Flash run, and I mean, and I'm all caught up on the current issues, the fact that I'll have a Flash comic book where I can go 6 issues and I don't even see Barry Allen, it's ridiculous. And if you told me, hey, look, there's a Justice League comic where you can get Barry's story, okay, that's fine then. Okay, they're doing something. To have Barry Allen on the shelf, especially after the push that you've done. And again, what comic books always puzzled me on, while the Flash movie was in theaters, there was not a comic book that you could get that had Barry Allen in it. And I understand the Flash movie didn't do great. I completely get that. But at the same time, the Flash movie still made like 230, $240 million. A comic book to be successful needs to move a couple thousand copies. You
Yeah.
can't tell me that there weren't a few people who saw that movie and went, I like the Flash, let me go check that out. And anyone who did walked into the store. We don't have a comic with Barry Allen right now. To
Yeah.
me, that's a huge. They have spent a decade or so rebuilding Barry Allen, making him the focus in the TV show, focus in the movie universe. To have that character not in an ongoing book currently, when you've got Poison Ivy and Power Girl and Harley Quinn and all these other books that are out there all the time, I just refuse to believe that's the case. And I think
I, I remember
that you
going
just
into
need
the
to have something.
I remember going into the comic shop to pick up my Flash comics when the TV show was about to hit. And I was like, is there going to be a comic that, is a companion to the TV show? And they were like, no, no, but
Yeah,
so, I mean, it was
no,
just like we talk about these missed opportunities. I mean, to sell the parent medium of these great stories and characters, the parent medium is the floppy comic book. It just seems like when it blew up, I don't think the print shop, and the whole DC and Marvel shop, I don't think they really could
ready to
comprehend
take advantage of what
how
they were
to take
having.
advantage of it. It seems like a no-brainer, but you and I
Well,
talked
and I
about this
think the
at
thing
length.
is, you've got to get back to, like you said, the basics on this. And one of the reasons I will say that it bugs me to see them not really doing much with Barry. and Jay really is. In all honesty, so many of the modern DC comics, we've talked about this in the video we did about Infantino and about the others. And I know for you it hits because he's your favorite character, but I'll just say this as someone who's a huge DC Comics fan. So much of modern DC Comics is owed to the Flash. That character, he may not have the prestige of Batman and Superman currently or Wonder Woman, but the thing about it is if Showcase doesn't hit the way that it hits with the reinvention of Barry, who knows where the superhero genre is? If they don't successfully do the Flash of Two Worlds, which kind of brought the multiverse really into DC Comics proper, we have so many elements that are owed to that. It would be great to see them pay that to that character the way that they don't let other characters go. And I think that's the part that makes me frustrated a little bit with DC is when I see characters like Barry Allen and Arthur Curry as Aquaman and stuff like that, and I see them not on the shelves, not having a book, really seeming to be spinning their wheels. It's just ridiculous because, in all honesty, I think even though me and you love DC Comics and we think there's a lot of great characters, DC does not have the bench that Marvel has. The thing that has separated Marvel is Marvel probably goes 50, 60 deep in terms of
Right.
characters that could actually sustain their own solo book when you
Right.
really look at it. You know, and so it's almost understandable when a character like Luke Cage or someone like that gets benched for a bit because Marvel's got so many books that at a
Yeah.
certain point, like, can you even maintain a solo writer for all of that? But with DC Comics, it's like when you're telling me you can't have a Barry Allen comic or an Aquaman comic on the stands, I flat don't believe that. And the thing is, you've pushed, especially Barry. With his historical significance, the fact that he was pushed so much on TV and so much in the movies, that you would not have a comic to match that. And I'm not advocating for the death of Wally or benching Wally. I think Wally's a great character. Jeremy Adams' work on the Wally West run that he did. If you have not read that, folks,
Really
go
good.
back and read that. It was when that was coming out, that might have been the best book being released by the big two
And
at
don't
that
forget
time.
about Mark Wade in the 90s. He
Yeah,
wrote some
there's
really good.
so much good Wally West content. I just feel like the Flash right now kind of seems to be going nowhere. And the thing is, with the great depth they have with Wally, Jay, and Barry, it's just really, in all honesty, kind of inexcusable that DC largely seems to have kind of been like throwing up their hands. And I refuse to believe that Power Girl and Poison Ivy can maintain a solo book, and the Flash characters can't. That just seems ridiculous.
It does, and now, the waters get really muddied in the current storylines when you have, half a dozen speedsters, traveling through these multi-dimensional, and the multi-dimensional thing is cool. I mean, it was invented in Flash 123. So the multi-dimensional thing is cool, but it was like a once a year kind of, an event thing. It was a big,
Not every single story.
not yeah, yeah. I mean, it was just anyway. I think going back to basics, and I'm an older guy, so like I don't understand exactly where the market is for some of these storylines, but it really seems to me that for both Marvel and DC, if you get back to the fundamentals of some of these iconic characters that are, legendary at this point, I mean, you really can't go wrong. And there are more stories to be told with these people in the modern era and these characters in the modern
I
era.
mean,
There really are.
certainly for Barry, given that Barry was really what 56 was a showcase 56, right? 56
1956.
to 85 and then 85 to 2005 really. Barry
Yeah.
got like our 2008, I think was when Flash Rebirth was. You
Yeah.
basically had a 20 something year gap where Barry wasn't there. So
He
it's
was
not
dead.
like Bruce or somewhere like that where you're like, well, there's been 90 years of stories or 85 years of stories. Barry's got a nice, section of time that he wasn't there. I just feel like that's the biggest thing that DC's missing out on is I think from Wally West standpoint, I think it's cool that he has a book. I love Wally West as a character, but they need to do more with Barry. I would love to see that be a part of DC All In, do something. I think you could easily have, if you wanted to keep it, have a Wally West book. And I really think if you did a Flash book with a Barry main story and a backup story with Jay, I think it would be really cool, and I think it could work quite well
And
for
I bet you would be more excited to pick up a copy of Flash if he had a story where he teamed up with Batman.
him. No, and that's the other thing is absolutely Detective
Yeah.
Comics. The thing is, if you have and largely look we've talked about this before about it, and for me there's no such thing as too much Batman, but I do know a lot of people who say there's too many Batman comic books. Well, one of the things is if you're going to have all these Batman comic books, and I get it, you put Batman on a cover, it sells. So the
Right.
thing is, use Batman then, right?
Yeah.
You have these other characters. If they're really struggling, let's do a detective comic storyline that has Batman working with Barry, or have a comic
You
where
see
it's,
the you see what I'm thinking here, right?
yeah,
I'm like,
that
yeah,
that's the biggest thing. And you used to, and I think Marvel used to do this brilliantly, where they would kind of almost character rehab books and like Wolverine and Spider-Man, where it's like we want to bring him back. Let's
yeah.
throw Wolverine on a couple
Right?
covers. Oh, look how cool this
Exactly.
character is. Even Wolverine likes him, and I think that would really be something if you're going to have that. I just think they absolutely need to do something with the Flash universe, pare it down a little bit, get rid of some of these repetitive characters. You don't have to kill them, just depower them, send them, let them have kind of a happy little break or whatever.
Maybe
um,
they're gonna go to another town and help that town with their crime problem or whatever. They can
at the
always come
very
back,
least,
right?
with launching this absolute universe, what I do hope is, look, if you want to tell me we're not going to have Barry in the DC proper universe, that's fine. But there should be a Barry in the absolute universe then. Right.
Right on.
I'll absolutely be fine with that. If it's like, you know what, in the main universe, it's Wally. We're going to keep Wally as the main focus. Cool. Then in the absolute universe you're doing with the juggernaut sized Batman and long haired Superman, throw us something with Barry on. I think it would
I,
be interesting.
I almost kind of wonder if, after the panning of the Flash movie, if DC's just kind of like, well, maybe they're just, what do we do with the Flash now? I don't know. Throw some more uh, Flash
Yeah, I mean,
family.
it
I
could
don't
be
know.
related to that. Although, what I'll say is Shazam's movie did worse than The Flash, and Shazam still has an ongoing comic book. And so I think they've got to. I just think that's the biggest thing DC's got to get back to. As a DC fan, one of the things that I think is just ridiculous is, I've noticed I've picked up more Marvel and DC on my sub list lately, and it's because it's more consistent. Right,
Yeah.
like Iron Man always has a book, Thor always has a book, Hulk always has a book, right? You don't see these big characters go any significant stretch of time without a book. The fact I think we're almost at, I would say, over a year and a half of no Aquaman comic book. And even though he had a big budget movie release,
Yeah.
and we're almost 2 or so years without Barry having to focus in a book in a comic book. I just don't know how we got there. And I think for DC, I just refuse to believe that with the bench DC has, you got to have one of these books out there with these characters. The DC cannot afford to just go, hey, the Barry Allen and Aquaman branch of things, we're just not going to put any time into that anymore. You guys don't have the amount of characters to pull that. And I think that's, if you can get a strong Aquaman book going, a strong Flash book going, I think DC would be better off. But let us know what you guys think below with DC All In coming up. What would you like to see them do with the Flash overall? Do you think that'd be a cool idea for an absolute, version of the Flash? Or what would you do if we put you in charge of DC Comics and you told you, hey, you got to do a little character rehab on the Flash? Let us know what you think. We're going to go through a couple of characters on this. There's some characters me and Mike really like that we feel like have kind of fallen by the wayside a bit. And so we just want to throw some ideas out there, see what you guys think as well. I think Aquaman's probably the next one we'll explore
Yeah.
on this as well, because he's been a bit neglected. But as always, folks, let us know what you think. We love seeing the comments down below. Again, thank you for watching. God bless you. You have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.